Welcome to the regular town council meeting, the town of Cave Creek, Arizona for Monday, October 16th, 2023. The first thing on the agenda tonight is an executive session. Council discussion, consultation, direction to, and legal advice from the town attorney pursuant to ARS section 38-431.03 A3 and A4 regarding town case NCU-23-01 Greenberg non-conforming use. A request for modification to the footprint of a single-family dwelling within the minimum required side yard setback. Is there a motion to move into executive session?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We're now in executive session. Welcome to the regular town council meeting. The council has been in executive session. Now we're reconvening into the main session. We've already had the roll call vote silently. Ready for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Poppenweimer, would you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Periodically, when there's a lot of people in the room, I read this note here. I'm going to do that today. Before we begin our meeting, I'd like to clarify how it is conducted and specifically the public comment portion of the meeting. Public comment is welcomed. This is one of the many ways to inform your local governmental representatives and staff of issues that are important to you or to suggest improvements in the way we conduct the town's business. Our goal is to have a welcoming and friendly atmosphere between our community members and local government. Speakers are reminded to address their comments to the mayor and council and not to the audience. Arizona open meeting law governs these activities and greatly restricts how meetings are conducted and how council members communicate outside of the public meeting. There are two opportunities for the public to speak. First, at call to the public immediately following these results, you will have the opportunity to speak to council staff and those participating and watching via Zoom. There can be no discussion by council of items raised, but we can direct staff to investigate. Arizona law requires that all discussed items be on a published and advertised agenda, so all parties have notice of potential action. Speakers must come to the podium, and they must speak directly to council. Speaking to the staff or to other audience members is not permitted. Please speak clearly into the microphone. To begin, state your name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak on the relevant subject. You will note a set of 3 lights on the podium. Green means you are within your 3 minutes. It turns yellow as your time is about to expire and red when your time is expired. At that point, please expeditiously conclude your thoughts. The second way to publicly communicate with us is during the public comment or public hearing section on an agenda item. Speaking is conducted the same way as the call to the public at the microphone and limited to 3 minutes. If you wish to speak during either of these opportunities, please take a form on the table near the, we need to change our speech here. The forms near the town clerk over on the south side of the room and fill out your information. Please hand it to our town clerk, Teresa Riza, sitting next to the left of council members. She will call your name when it is your time to participate. Thank you for attending our council meetings and taking the time to participate and express yourselves. Democracy in action. With that, we'll move to public announcements. The first thing I'd like to announce is that the request to speak forms used to be on the table as one entered. Now they're over next to Teresa, so that we don't have as much crossing back and forth across the room during the meeting. The second thing is there's an email form over here. We'd like to get all the people in town on our email list in case of emergencies, problems, issues that come up within the town. So please grab one of those and put your email on it and hand it to Teresa too. The next thing I'd like to bring up is the Taste of Cave Creek is this week. Hooray. Yeah, I'm going. So I hope to see you all there. Other public announcements from council?
I'd like to just say
Microphone.
that we're hoping you all remember the Dark Skies event, November 4th.
Oh.
That is the most awesome thing to watch. The lasers point out what's above us and around us. Please come see that. Thank you.
Call to the public,
We have no one wishing to speak.
town manager report.
We have a lot of activities this week. The mayor covered the Taste of Cape Creek and Councilmember Alcoma covered the upcoming Dark Sky event. Tomorrow, I know Teresa mentioned this last council meeting, but tomorrow at 9 a.m. at Firehouse Subs is a recognition event for the grant they gave the town for the Trail Rescue UTV. So it's open to the public if you'd like to attend. The Planning Commission is meeting this Thursday at 6 p.m. and they will have their kickoff of the town core plan process. And there is also another meeting next week at Thursday, October 29th from 5 to 7 p.m. It's open for public input. It's the very first of several meetings to give your input. Let's see here. We have a newsletter coming out the beginning of November. You'll start seeing that in your mailboxes the end of October, 1st of November. And I think that's everything.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
First item on the agenda tonight is the consent agenda, approval of the August 28th, 2023 special town council meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it 7-0. It is approved. General agenda items. First one is council discussion and action approving resolution number R 2023-23, a resolution of the mayor and town council of the town of Cave Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, authorizing the mayor to execute an intergovernmental agreement between the town of Cave Creek and the state of Arizona for the town's participation in the state and local cybersecurity grant program. Presented by the deputy town manager, Teresa.
Mayor and council, this item is regarding the cybersecurity program that the federal and state of Arizona Department of Homeland Security, they provide us with programs and services. And at this time, we've been working closely with them. The programs and services that we have been working with have no cost to us except for staff time. The services include support from knowledgeable staff, and we do request for the IGA to receive services through the federal, state, and local cybersecurity grant program be approved. I am going to ask Brian Poor, our IT coordinator, to come up and introduce the DHS representative and provide some additional information on this program.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Council. On Zoom today with us.
Brian,
is-
your microphone's not on, I don't believe.
It's on.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Speak
All
up.
right. On Zoom today with us is Nan Pham, the statewide cybersecurity program manager from the state of Arizona Department of Homeland Security Cyber Command, who can help answer questions about the program while maintaining appropriate precautions to protect our cybersecurity posture. The Arizona Department of Homeland Security is overseeing a federal, state, and local grant program with the aim of ensuring cities, towns, and other public institutions have access to resources to prevent, detect, and mitigate cyber attacks. Many of the tools and resources that we've worked with previously have focused on hardening vulnerabilities, reducing potential risk vectors, and detecting cyber attacks. Some of the focus with these new resources will be on a more rapid detection and access to response from state resources on a 24/7, 365 basis, as well as security training and managed services tools. By working with the state and federal resources, the town will continue strengthening our data security and overall resiliency. Staff requests approval of this agreement so that we can engage with the resources provided by the Arizona Department of Homeland Security via the federal grant. Thank you. And with that, we can try to answer any questions. Yes, sir.
So what sorts of things are in this grant? What activities are they covering?
There are three major components to it. One is a strategic operations center. And that would help us in the event of an active cyber attack. They would be able to jump in and help us to combat it and get a quick resolution and mitigation for any kind of issues that we might be having. Second component is the managed services, which are just tools for being able to remotely access systems, to handle system patching, general ability to manage and patch our systems for security. And the third item on here is cybersecurity training for me, which I would greatly appreciate.
So let me see if I can. They're gonna provide network monitoring, correct?
Yes.
Okay, network monitoring is a big deal,
Yes.
particularly since we have the new financial software that we don't want people mucking with. The second thing, as I understood it, they're gonna be coming in and doing training. And the third thing that they're going to be doing is the software update and patching. We tell them what software they have, they push the latest security patches to it, correct?
Yes.
Brian, I can speak to this if I can jump in.
Yes, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dan Pham. I'm with the Arizona Department of Homeland Security. So just to clarify, the three services is a 24/7, 365 managed security operations center that augments our team. So 24/7 eyes on glass. We'll be able to alert you should any cyber risk occurs. We can act for you should you guys give us prior authorization. But again, that's 24/7 eyes on glass, protecting you 365. The second one is professional managed services. So we also provide 5 tools through the state cyber readiness program. So we'll help you implement those tools. We'll help you utilize those tools. And in the event that we can, we'll help manage those tools on your behalf. And the last one is cybersecurity training for people like Brian, for people like you all, so that you can educate yourself on cyber attacks and understand phishing attacks more specifically.
Thank you. Other questions from council?
It's like a good problem.
At this point, there's public comment on this.
I have no one wishing to speak.
Comments from council? Or let's say, we need a motion from council, I guess. Someone like to make a motion on this? Page 4.
I move the council discussion and action approving resolution number R 2023-23, a resolution of the mayor and the town council of the town of Cave Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, authorizing the mayor to execute an intergovernmental agreement between the town of Cave Creek and the state of Arizona for the town's participation in the state and local cybersecurity grant program.
Second.
Was there a bunch of us?
I think it's very important we do this. We're in the process of modernizing many of our older processes, and this is a good thing for everybody involved.
Yeah, it's always good to protect ourselves from all the people who want to do bad stuff to us through the internet. Hmm?
You got my carefree?
Yeah, yeah, there is that. I wasn't going to say that out loud.
Any other comments? My comment is it's free, it's needed, it's one heck of a lot more than we could do for ourselves by a order of magnitude. So I'm highly in favor of this. With that, it is non-financial, so we'll take a voice vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Number 2 on the agenda is council discussion and approval of town case NCU 23-01 Greenberg non-conforming use, a request for modification to the footprint of a single-family dwelling within the minimum required side yard setback, presented by the Development Services Director.
This is my opportunity.
Yes, I'm going to recognize Council Member McGuire.
I have allowed my passion in this matter to take me to a public position that prevents me from making an unbiased vote on this issue. That's my mistake. I will recuse myself from both deliberation and the vote. I have been advised by counsel that I could stay in the room. It is my choice not to do so.
Okay, so Luke, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. I just got exponentially more nervous because my high school art teacher just walked in and sat down, so try not to make a fool of myself too much here in my presentation. I've invited the applicant Stephen Laurie Greenberg to sit at the table generally reserved for staff. I don't mind standing during my presentation. I'll try to be as succinct as possible. The application before council this evening is a request to approve case NCU 2301 Greenberg, a non-conforming use, which is a request for modification to the footprint of a single-family dwelling within the minimum required side yard setback. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on this matter on Thursday, September 7th. The Planning Commission, by a vote of 6-0, voted to recommend approval of this application. And really what this case boils down to, if you look at Exhibit B in your packet, which on page 41 and 42 details two site plans. One shows the existing conditions of the Greenberg property, commonly referred to as Harmony Hollow. Show the property as they acquired it circa 2020. 21, thank you. In that time, since they acquired it, they met with staff, discussed with staff the opportunities from everything from tearing it down and rebuilding anew to rehabbing the existing structure. It's a very old structure. And you can see in the exhibits that there are existing encroachments which go beyond the property line of Harmony Hollow onto Spur Cross Ranch. There's an existing metal canopy totaling 306 square feet, plus an additional continuation of that metal canopy within the 12-foot native habitat corridor, totaling 55 square feet for a total encroachment of 361 square feet. The next page, page 42, at least in my packet, shows the removal or elimination of that structure and the further mitigation of improvements within the 12-foot native habitat corridor. For example, the existing permeable deck is being reduced from 151 square feet from what was there to 136 square feet. So that is a reduction or mitigation as well. What the Greenbergs have proposed doing is taking an existing veranda, which is another covered structure. It's referenced in the light blue on the first page, totaling 64 square feet. In their proposed plan, they show expanding that, totaling 75 square feet. So that's a difference of 11 square feet in an addition to the structure. Really, as staff looked at this, this is clearly an elimination and mitigation of existing nonconformities. The math bears out that there's 361 square feet of lot coverage that they assumed when they purchased the property, and through the improvements that they have permitted through town, reduced that by 350 square feet in total. The Greenbergs are here. They do have a presentation, but I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
My one question is, we're talking now not about any non-conforming, we're removing all the non-conforming from Spur Cross itself. Is that correct?
Mayor, members of council, that is correct.
So the continuing non-conforming will only be on the Greenberg's property in the native habitat corridor. Is that correct?
That is correct. And they're mitigating that by reducing that area by 15 square feet as well.
Other questions from council? Yep. Great.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council, and the staff for your time tonight. I'll keep this as brief as
Thanks. I'll keep this as brief as I can, guys. I know you have a full agenda and a lot of people in the room. But we are Steve and Lori Greenberg. These are the properties that we own in Cave Creek. The top one is our primary home address. The one in bold is the Harmony Hollow lot that contains the house in question tonight. This is the non-conforming use modification application, which is the subject of our request for approval this evening. And this is a sort of a bird's eye view of the area to get oriented. This land, this map is actually out of date because of some great developments, but Harmony Hollow is there in the kind of chevron shaped area bordered by Spur Cross Conservation Area on 3 sides, Jewel the Creek below it, private land adjacent. And the purchase of Harmony Hollow relieved the conservation effort of a big expense, which allowed the town to go on and buy what is called private land now, but is now owned by the town and the county, was known as the Triangles. So the conservation of the area is essentially complete. So this is a really important development, which began with the conservation of Spur Cross many years ago. This, yeah, it's delaying. This is a bird's eye view of the lots that we own to give you a sense of where it sits and the open space around it. And the house in question is the little dot circle in the upper left. That's the 10C lot that has the house on it. Anyone who's approached the trailhead at Spur Cross has seen the iconic sign at Harmony Hollow, as well as the gate created by artist Richard Mako, who lived there for many years. And you can't help but notice the view of a house off in the distance with Elephant Mountain behind it. That's Harmony Hollow. That's what we're talking about here today. Cave Creek, the namesake of our town, runs right through it. It's a unique riparian environment, which includes the aquifer of water storage, natural water storage for Cave Creek. And it hosts many interesting life forms. These are all pictures of animals that have been on the property. You'll see the crates up top. Paul Deef and Southwest Wildlife normally regularly release animals there that have been rehabilitated because it's part of the wilderness interface. So it's a perfect place to bring them and let them get back to nature. Mountain lions, bobcats, everything, you name it. It's a pretty, the cows are escapees from Tonto. They're not native. This is actually an older map of the archaeological survey of the area. So you can see that humans have lived here for thousands of years. The Harmony Hollow shape is unique. You can see in the bottom right. That has not been surveyed to the same extent, but there are hundreds of sites in the area. Each site can be actually many buildings. So artifacts, history of humans for thousands of years. These are some of the actual petroglyphs on the property of Harmony Hollow, some of which have some interesting characteristics. We need some expert information on this, but one of them is that the depiction of a sun facing the east where the sun rises, which I hadn't seen in my many hikes in the area. This is the vista of Harmony Hollow from what we call the stamp mill side, the site of the original Phoenix stamp mill that is an important part of the history of the town of the mining. This is what it looked like probably sometime in the mid-20th century. You can see the ruins of the stamp mill and the foundation. Previous owner to this property, Skip Hoyle, built this deck out of the ruins, and we use it to share and enjoy the property with the community. This is a recent meetup where we invite people out to enjoy the space and to share community. Speaking of community, and I think a bunch of them are here tonight, there was a Facebook group that was trying to preserve Harmony Hollow for many years called Preserve Harmony Hollow. That's been changed to Harmony Hollow Preserved, and it has over 900 members. We've held many public presentations at the Sonoran Art League with Desert Foothills Land Trust, at the Chamber of Commerce, Daughters of American Revolution, and the Holland Center Spotlight Series, in which we share the history and the information about the property, and we're open to finding the best use for it. We've held dozens of gatherings on the property where people are invited to see it for themselves and talk about it. And I'm proud to tell you as a board member that Cave Creek Museum is including Harmony Hollow in the current exhibit. So some very interesting information there about the saving of Spur Cross and the artists and so forth that have populated the area. And upcoming at the Holland Center on November 14th is a retrospective of art at Harmony Hollow. that encourage you all to come. There's going to be a pre-event where you can meet the makers, and my wonderful wife, artist, is one of those makers. The impact of art in Cave Creek cannot be underestimated. One fact you may not be aware of is the town symbol behind you, behind the dais, was actually created at Harmony Hollow by Melissa Paxton, a glass artist. So the impact of art throughout Cave Creek has been part of its culture and history. And we're also proud to celebrate in 2024, 50 years of the Sonoran Art League. I see a number of people here who are involved, which actually began as the Cave Creek Craft Council at Harmony Hollow 50 years ago plus, where the artists got together and said, we need to work together to create an economy of shows and art in the area. And some of those artists are still with us today, and there's some great stories. Before we got involved in this, we were just normal people. We used to love to hike Spur Cross Conservation Area and the Jewel of the Creek. And we always thought that what was between certainly must have been conservation area. It's beautiful. You look as far as you can see, there's parks, there's parking. But in fact, we learned it wasn't when previous iteration of this council in January 2021 agreed to fund appraisals of the land, the private land. And we said, what private land? And both of us, because of our love for Cave Creek and the land and the assumption that it was conserved, we felt overwhelmed with the mission to preserve this land. And in the short story, we did. We also felt that if we didn't, there would be a competition for development. And the image in my mind was construction and developers outbidding each other because this is prime land. We went into contract and within 48 hours received a competitive bid, which would give us $250,000 to walk away. So I think our intuition was right that this land was about to pop and we weren't going to let that happen. Now, I talked about the visions of development, and I'm a tech guy. So thanks to the developments in artificial intelligence, I can show you what was in my head when I read this appraisal. Tearing the mountain into homes. Luxury homes that would cut through Harmony Hollow. By nature of the zoning, would have to be a paved road for multi-dwellings. You would certainly need bridges and crossings to get there across the raging creek. You would lose the vista, the riparian ecosystem we showed you, and just really lose a precious resource. You can also imagine what the developers would advertise. These are AI generated homes in front of Elephant Mountain, so that's pretty cool. But what's not so cool is them selling 6,500 to, we estimate, 15,000 square foot homes, advertising that you can live inside your own desert preserve. You'd have a gated community with paved roads, security guards, and the best part is you'd get your water from Cave Creek. Your house would drop a well and pull the water out of Cave Creek, and that would be literal. This property has grandfather water rights for agricultural purposes, and like Seven Springs where they bottle water, there's a lot of water and you can take it if you're the owner of this land. And best of all of these homes and all of this water use would be 100% Cave Creek zoning compliant. So we propose, why don't we keep it like this? This is what it looks like today. I prefer this. Does anybody agree? Okay. I agree. So that's what we plan to do. So some key facts is this home was built in the 1970s before Cave Creek was a twinkle in anyone's eye. It was incorporated in the 80s, and then this property was annexed in 1997, and then through the terms of that agreement, grandfathered in to its current use and its state. It's a private residence with open land zone DR 190. It's made up of 4 lots, which I showed you before. We're talking about the lot with the home on it. Altogether, there are a total of 36 acres because we own the adjacent lot known as the Stamp Mill site. And with DR 190 and 36 acres, you're zoned for 8 homes. Our goal is to prevent further development, and we're planning to do that by restoring the existing home. Luke talked about different options we looked at, but we felt like any economical or logical option would require additional development where we would impact the land further. So we took the inefficient, expensive way of just rebuilding this house in its footprint so we don't expand the footprint onto the rest of the land. We've been working with local providers, which has been a great experience. We're trying to do it sourced locally and work with the town. One of the most exciting things about this is the two other owners of private property adjacent to us are in verbal initial agreements to create a conservation easement across these lands that would lock the creek and the land surrounding the creek into perpetual conservation. That's a very exciting development because that means the creek would be preserved from the county to the Jewel and all the way up through Tonto. So this is something that's very, very significant. And it's an exciting, wonderful story until you pay all kinds of money and you walk in front of your house and go, that's what I bought. It's okay to call the baby ugly because we've got something pretty rough. That's the back. This is the front. It's cute. It's rustic. It took 3 days to remove all the rat poop. It was rough, but the idea was to work with an awesome local architect and take, as I said, do not create a new footprint, do not create a new neighborhood, a new home somewhere up on a hill, but take this broken down structure and make it modern, make it safe, make it on current building codes. So these are some comparisons of the way it was and what the plans call for. So you can see proper structural engineering, gabions and poles and things like that. This is the view that you would see at a distance from Spur Cross that looked great until you got up close to it. It's going to become proper balconies, decks, windows, etc. Again, fireproof, fire sprinklers, proper engineering. Coming back to this part, Luke mentioned a veranda. That's what we're looking at, a 2-story structure. We'll call it the veranda. That was in pretty rough shape. And we determined that it wasn't a good thing that the corners there, it's a little hard to see in this picture, the structural beams that support it weren't touching. That was the level of what we walked into. And we felt that that had to come down, and we looked to the left and we see the deck also looks cool. It's kind of industrial and interesting in a way, but sketchy. But the big problem that Luke also referred to was this awning that you see him projecting, which actually went clear across into the neighboring property, which is now part of Spur Cross. It's essentially grandfathered, but we just weren't comfortable with that. We really wanted to make this right. And here's how you see it from aerial. I'm going to add the property line so you can get a good sense of it. So that everything to the left is over the property line, and we just aren't comfortable with that. Now here's the official engineering drawings, and Luke referred to this as in the packet. So you can see the starting point. That's blue, right? Existing home. Yeah, I'm colorblind. Yeah. So the existing home, a big chunk of it was in the setback from day one. The setback didn't exist back then. It was county free for all. But I just want to be clear that a huge portion of the home and a portion of the veranda were already over the setback. But in addition, you had the permeable deck and the awning, which went out further. Our plan eliminates most of that and mitigates it in some important ways. Eliminating because we just weren't comfortable with the situation, even though it's technically grandfathered, and then mitigating it by rebuilding it to modern standards and folding it back around the house. Instead of sticking out, you can see that it goes from out the property line to wrap around itself. And that's the essential mitigation, but it's also completely rebuilt. We thought we could keep more of it than we can, but it's a money pit issue. According to the zoning ordinance, if you read chapter 11 F2, which has become a place I spent a lot of time recently in, the modification or expansion of a nonconformity, that's an existing nonconforming grandfathered structure, may not be modified or expanded without approval of a nonconforming use modification permit, which is the subject of tonight's approval. But we've kind of determined and learned since then, the remaining sentence is what's very relevant here, unless the legal nonconformity is being eliminated or mitigated, and that is essentially what has happened. The Town Planning Commission met. Luke reported the results of that. Unanimous vote yes to recommend to the Town Council to approve the permit. And the town lawyer, planner, and members of the Planning Commission stated that the plan is actually, our building plan is actually zoning compliant, and that technically this extra process is not necessary. We're happy to go through if it, we'll explain why in a moment. And they also felt that the treatment we received from some of the criticism and public commentary was amounted to harassment. Additional recommendation was that the Town Planning Commission felt that we should be refunded the permit fee. I'm not focused on that, but that was part of their recommendation left out of the slide. So why are we here if this is already compliant? And unfortunately, we received, and you've received, written and verbal public allegations that have been made towards us, the town, and people on the council. Many of these are verifiably false, defamatory, and have cost us and the town significant amount of time and money, many months, a lot of money. In the process, we believe that the public record request process was abused because communications were used and misrepresented in various ways, implying that we were doing things and saying things that we weren't. And appeals to the Board of Adjustment were expected based on the history of the behavior of these people in the past. So that would be a process that would shut us down. Even if it's not appropriate, it still would do it by nature of the way the process works. So tonight, voting yes on the non-conforming modification permit avoids this appeal process, and any further conflict reduces the continued expense and what would ultimately be risky litigation for the town, because it has been determined that it's compliant. So any litigation that resulted would not go well. And most of all, and I hope I've got this through to you by showing you the beauty of the place, that's the right thing to do. Looking again at the plan, the essential element in question is that little circle. The little bottom of what is the new veranda is a net new piece of house. Although there's so much elimination and mitigation, it still leaves you one little piece over the setback line to keep it in sync with the house, which was always over the setback line. And that amounts to 11 square feet footprint on the corner of the lot. So we thought it would be useful to see the impact of 11 square feet. Thanks to my wife, who's an artist. This is 11 square feet. So that's what's holding this whole thing up. I'll leave this with you to see. All right. And I'm almost done. I won't take much longer. So that 11 square feet in the context of the house, if you stand at the back of Spur Cross parking lot and look out towards Elephant Mountain, that's the house. That's the perspective of the amount of space we're talking about. Also in chapter 11 are the criteria by which the council would approve this. And it's essentially 2 points: that it would not result in an increase in vehicular or pedestrian traffic in adjacent areas. There wouldn't be any nuisance arising from emission or odor, dust, gas, noise, vibration, smoke, heat, or glare at a level exceeding that of ambient conditions. And there wouldn't be any contribution to the deterioration of the neighborhood. In addition, it would assure compatibility with existing surrounding structures and uses, and there would be adequate control of disruptive behavior, both inside and outside the premises, which may create a nuisance to the surrounding area or general public. And I think it's clear that this project would meet that criteria. With that, I thank you for your time, and I'm open to any questions or discussion that you'd like to engage in.
Are there any questions from council of either staff or Mr. and Mrs. Greenberg? Councilman?
Yeah, Mr. Greenberg. Luke gave us a little bit bigger map here than, have you been up the hill and seen what appears to be a barbed wire fence
Yes, sir.
to your way? Is it really there?
It really is.
How'd you get there?
I've gone there many ways, but there's some holes in it to the east. But generally I go there and jump over it.
And that likely is an artifact from when it was ranching?
Absolutely.
To keep
Yeah,
the
it's
cattle
cattle
out
fencing.
out of the area,
Yeah.
or enclosed, whichever.
You'll actually, as you hike through, I bushwhack a lot through there. As you hike through, you'll see that same kind of fencing, almost all the property lines in the area. It's missing across the creek just because the floods have been so
Yeah.
heavy, they've taken it down. But even the push down fence is still there across the creek. So when these were ranchers, they had to be careful about where their livestock went.
Yeah. So that leads to one more question, which is, and I'm going to ask for speculation on your
Sure.
part. Would you believe that the original people that bought the parcel believed that that barbed wire fence was likely the property line, which is why they ended up across that property boundary?
If I'm speculating, I'd say yes, because so did I.
Yeah.
When I first walked it, I thought that was the property line. I was surprised to learn that the awning was over it. It's up the hill.
Mhm.
And I think it was probably an early survey mistake, because it's not easier to put it up the hill than where the line actually is. So I do believe that they had the line set back fairly far from where it really is.
Which kind of leads to one more. Since that was built along 1970 or so, that encroachment, and at that point in time, it was a private property. It didn't belong to the state, didn't belong to the county, didn't belong to the town of Cave Creek, and the state wasn't involved in it. Did you ever think about trying to do an adverse possession on it?
I have, but I smacked that idea down pretty quickly.
Well, you've torn
because-
it down now, so you can't do that anymore.
Well, no, because it belongs to Spur Cross in the county, and the county park system is amazing. It's one of the
Mhm.
largest ones in the country. Spur Cross is, we consider it an important resource, and we just wouldn't want to do that. We'd rather take it down than create conflict.
So your personal philosophy is about preservation is greater than your personal philosophy about this issue.
If you saw our bank account right now, you would see that, yes,
Yeah,
our,
right.
our
That's all I've
commitment to
got.
preservation is large.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments?
And I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Steve, thanks for this presentation. And I'm asking this question out of ignorance, but this is your private property. And you have shown us incredibly interesting pictures made through artificial intelligence about
Mhm.
what could happen on that property.
Yes, sir.
So I'd like to hear you talk about the commitment to that property and how big is it? And I mean, beyond just repairing this old spot. How are we supposed to think about that? That piece is awesome and it is right in the middle of an income generator for our town. It's got a lot of implications beside just being beautiful.
Yes, sir. Well, I think you can think of it this way, and thank you for the question. I think it's a good one. We're just those crazy people that just think that it should stay the way it is. The house was actually not safe the the condition it was in, but rebuilt and safe. That's it. We want to keep that place the way it is and enjoy it for posterity. We want to see the creek and the surrounding area be in an official conservation easement, because we've been educated on, even if you have good intents, people that come after you may not. So a perpetual deed of conservation will preserve that portion of it. But we're sincere in wanting to just restore this home, make it useful, and leave it at that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions from council? With that, I'm going to open the public hearing on this. This is a public hearing, and we'll take comments and opinions from the public.
Vicky Preston.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Is this on?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Vicky Preston. I'm the president and CEO of Desert Foothills Land Trust. Thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of hopefully the approval of this motion before you tonight. I think it's very clear and evident that the Greenbergs are selfless people. What they are doing is for the community. When we worked with the town and the county, the Desert Foothills Land Trust, Harmony Hollow was one of our top priorities for conservation. And unfortunately, we couldn't make that happen. We were stuck on appraised values. So at that point, we were so lucky to have someone come along and be a conservation buyer to purchase that property with the sole intent of seeing it forever protected. That is one of the most selfless acts anybody can do. As a private landowner, they have the ability to subdivide it, to build a bunch of houses. But the fact that they saw further than that and put the community in front of their needs is commendable. And furthermore, not only is the property forever going to be protected, we're talking about doing a conservation easement, which is perpetual, it is forever. you know, it's so important what they're doing. It's preserving a piece of history, not just the open space. They had the ability and the right to tear that building down, but they chose not to, which probably, as you alluded to, was a money pit and probably not the best decision, but it is a piece of our history, a piece of Cave Creek history. So again, everything that I've done has been transparent. They've had plenty of public meetings. They're excited to share how they are sinking more and more money into this, but to be transparent, to let everybody know what their full intentions are. So I just commend them, and I really hope that you can look to see what the good they are trying to do. They've been nothing but transparent, and this is a really good thing for our community. So I hope you approve this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jay Stenson, or is it Jared Stenson?
Jay Stinson, I'm Cape Creek resident. Probably haven't spoken here since '88. Actually, I'm almost, you should be able to do one of it. But the problem I have is the hypocrisy, or the way it's done, the way it was approved. I've asked for something with non-conforming use problems. Aerial photograph was pulled up and I was told, no. There is no thing. There's no other chance. He got some extra considerations, and it should be. Things should be looked at in considerations. But I was told no. That bothers me. So it's the way government comes along and picks and chooses how it's what's it's going to do. And this is he's got an emotional issue here. I don't. That one bothered me. Another one is talk to the town guy about the water running across our property. I'll see you in a day or two, 3 weeks. Still haven't seen you. It's pick and choose, and that bothers me. I can't really say anything else other than that. It seems to be the squeaky wheel, and he's got a good presentation. My God, it's a salesman. But rest of us don't. And that bothers me. Take care.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson.
David Phelps.
Good evening, I'm David Phelps. I'm here to address three items. First, my recommendation is to approve the application of the non-conforming use modification permit with a stipulation. And that stipulation is the steps are not allowed in the native habitat corridor. I've gone to some length to explain to the council the analysis for approval on the steps being in the native habitat corridor. I think there's been an error in judgment for the steps as they've been shown on the presentation. They're shown in white. And what's happened is they have not been accounted for in the math. And that makes them seem like they're a ghost in the presentation when in fact they are a structure. They do not belong in the native habitat corridor. There are native habitat corridor exceptions. There's half a dozen of them. Steps aren't one of them. If you want to put steps in the native habitat corridor, you need to establish a new use in the native habitat corridor to do so. The setup that we're in now with this non-conforming use permit would allow you to do that. You have a lot of discretion. This is a legislative act, I believe, that you're involved with in this case. And also, one of the issues would be, and I think the applicant would agree, is one of the things that you want to do when you're getting an approval from the town is do no harm. The interpretation of the deck not being lot coverage is going to be so detrimental to the remaining residents of the town of Cave Creek, because the deck not being considered lot coverage means that the remaining people in DR zoning district can have the same thing. We can start building these decks to basically cover the desert because they're not considered lot coverage. There's no regulation that's going to constrain this new item, this new interpretation of decks, permeable surface. And so I really think the emphasis should be on bringing the definition of decks permeable surface in line with other municipalities. The county has a very simple formula that if you are 50% or more in your coverage, then you are 100% covering. It's pretty simple to figure out that if you have 3 2x6 pieces of wood in a square foot layout, you've got 3/4 of an inch of a gap. You're still 80–90% covered. It's not a hard analysis to do. We are trying to bend too far to accommodate the applicant in not seeing the lot coverage where it really is. Now, because we're in this use permit, I'm sorry, I'm running over here. A non-conforming use modification permit, we are able to accommodate this applicant to having his deck, but we desperately need to fix the definition. We don't want unintended consequences. And I've offered to the mayor and council page 5 that shows what could happen around the rest of Cape Creek if we don't fix this. Because on page 5, you have the steps that Mr. Greenberg has had approved by Luke. And they're not going to fit everywhere in town. But the way Luke's interpreted this is that you can have this and not call it lot coverage. You can have these steps in the native habitat corridor and not call them a structure. They are a structure. So we do have allowances in the ordinance for steps, but the assumption should be made that those are for steps that are in the buildable area. Page 6 of my presentation to the council shows a site plan that's got some perspective on it. And it says simply, how high can I build a deck in desert rural zoning? Right now, it doesn't seem like we have a cap other than the 25-foot height for the buildable area. But if we allow these decks into the side yard setbacks without a height restriction, it's going to be a problem. In this case, I'm in agreement with having their deck approved, but catching it. This is the one that's going to get by us. And it's going to get by us because the town allowed him to continue his construction before he even filed for this permit to do the use modification permit, because these guys ran on fear and they were worried that I was going to do something to disrupt his building process. I had no intention of doing that. What I was trying to do is bring to light that you have 3 legislative acts within what you're doing. And we deserve to have the Planning Commission weigh in and the council weigh in and have this chamber full of voices to help decide these kinds of issues. Other than that, I'll take any questions. I know it's a lot to go through. There's a lot of analysis there. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Phelps.
Question?
Hilda Huntress.
Hello, my name is Hilda Huntress, and my street address is 40632 North 60th Street. And I have lived in Cave Creek. I'm probably a dinosaur here, 45 years. And so with that being said, we built our house here before we became a town. So we were also with that zoning and regulations. So I'm hoping that I never passed anything up on that. But the main thing I want to say is I definitely support the Greenbergs. I feel that they've been diligently as far as knowing all the facts and the surroundings of this area, the nature that they appreciate as much as I do. And I've had my horses here, have joined 4-H clubs, and have ridden all these trails in the Spur Cross Conservation Area before they were named trails. And so, and with mountain biking with my son and with horses and hiking with my dog, as Bob knows. I appreciate this area and I know that this couple does. And not only are they wanting to preserve and conserve this area, but they're wanting to utilize it in an area that will bring out the arts, the music, and all the things that I feel that brings more community to Cave Creek. And I just think that I feel it's very important to maybe let this variation go, just because it has been, I call it grandmothered in. And I feel that the small, hiking this area, horseback riding this area, mountain bike, this is not going to make a difference in the view of the beauty. And obviously they're wanting to keep this as beautiful as possible and to enjoy it as it is. And so that's why would you like to approve this this variation? So thank you.
Thank you.
Jay, are you also Jared or is that separate? Jared, okay, sorry.
Would you state your name, please?
Yeah, Jared Stinson. I agree that what they should be able to do whatever they want to do with their property, along with Mr. Phelps. I think I also agree with Mr. Phelps in that this sets a legal precedent going forward if you permit the extra 410 square feet of deck space that they're adding in lot coverage, which hasn't been taken. We've seen a lot of this 10 square feet, but nothing about the extra 458 square feet of added lot coverage, which if you just do the math between the two different site plans. But I think I mimic their fears going forward. If this is approved, it sets legal precedent going forward for anybody to just not need any permit, or they can build any deck that they want within their 30-foot setback. That's what you're seeing here. So that's my piece.
Thank you.
Darlene Southern.
Mayor, Town Council. My name is Darlene Southern. My address is 39026 North 52nd Street. The view from my back deck looks at Harmony Hollow and Elephant Mountain. So that was that AI generated picture was pretty horrifying. But I'm coming here because I'm speaking from a historic preservation point. I am a volunteer at the Cave Creek Museum. I serve on the board with Steve. I think we have to remember, as Steve brought up, this is a very historic property. I was involved with the exhibit, Art Across the Foothills, that traces how integral Harmony Hollow and the residents there were to the formation of the Sonoran Art League and our artistic heritage here in the Desert Foothills. And I see that what Steve and Lori are doing is maintaining this historic home and improving it and making it safe, and they're going to share it with the community. That's all you ever hear from them, is how this is supposed to be a place for the community, for people to gather. And I'd also like to see or encourage the council to consider historic properties as a separate entity. I understand what the other gentlemen were saying, but I think that a historic property has to be judged on a case-by-case basis. Otherwise, we could sit here and go through Cave Creek and nitpick every property that was built before 1970. And I'd really hate to see what would happen if we started getting out with our measuring sticks for those properties. I don't know. Maybe you guys can do some kind of resolution that says anything above 1970s protected, or we're going to look at differently than things that are built later. That's kind of your thing to do. But what I'd like to see is for the council to be proactive in protecting our historic buildings and iconic landmarks. And I think definitely Harmony Hollow is one of those places. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Anna Marcelo.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mayor, before you start my clock, I have a question to ask.
I don't start the clock.
And I-
sorry.
And I checked with the town manager. She said I could ask the question. It's a legal question. Is this act tonight, if approved, Mr. Sims, will it be administrative or legislative?
Mr. Phelps asked that same question, and I think I admire Mr. Phelps and your passion. And he raised 4 different issues, all of which I'd be happy to respond. And I'd rather do that in the context of his other 3 issues. If you don't mind.
Okay,
I will, but I will respond.
thank you, sir. Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. On April 10th, I opened Facebook and Steve Greenberg was so excited, and I didn't blame him because he waited such a long time, but he had his permits in hand. And he said, now I can bring to life as a center for art, education, desert awareness, and learning on Harmony Hollow. Well, I responded, I'm the harassment who responded. And I said, I will save my accolades for when the whole process is revealed. Sounds like some commercialization in a residential area is being proposed without following due process of rezoning. A center for art, education, desert awareness, and learning. These were the things that the Highland Center boasted about before they built their building. What will all that entail? Bringing cars, pollution, lighting to our Spur Cross Road residential and Spur Cross Conservation Area? I would hope our town officials are asking some questions before permits were granted, and please give us some more information. So I came here tonight. I'm still very concerned that, are you setting a precedent? Is this a step closer to a rezoning? Will this be just one more clip off of the calendar to allow commercialism contiguous to Spur Cross Ranch? It's just, I still don't feel like Mr. Greenberg has assured me, because they keep bringing people in cars out there. Is this just one step closer? And I may be wrong. I hope I am wrong, but I've been here for so long. I've seen so many changes. I've seen so many things illegally done in this town, things that haven't been carried out. And I don't want this to be one of them. Thank you for your time, and I'll look forward to your answer.
Thank you.
Tamsin Wolf.
Mayor and Council, my name is Tamsin Wolf. I live 8937 East Northview Lane. I'm a Carefree resident. And I'm also the person responsible for the Spotlight series that Steve spoke about briefly. That was our most popular series in the spring. I'm here to say that there are many people in Carefree and North Scottsdale that support this project. And I hope that you'll approve what he's proposing to do, and keep in mind that it is a historic property, and I want to reinforce what Darlene said, that the rules, your guidance by what you would do with properties that are built in our time period are a little different when you're talking about historic preservation. And I think that people are stuck on the word or the phrasing Center for Arts, I think that was not the right word to use, because the Holland Center and the Sonoran Art League, those are our centers. This is just a touch point, a place for people to gather and do stargazing and small groups. And the size of the parties that they've been having are no different than I would have in my home in Carefree. So thank you for letting me speak as a Carefree resident.
You're welcome anytime. Thank you.
Julie Racklin. Julie Racklin.
Hello, thanks for letting me speak. My name is Julie Racklin. I live at 44028 North Spur Cross Road. I'm in the Green Victorian house across from Harmony Hollow by Jewel of the Creek. And the Greenbergs are the ones who told me about this conservation easement. Yes. And so my husband and I are considering doing the same so that we can also preserve this area that runs through the creek and beyond the creek and abuts to their land. The parties that they have, they're really just gatherings. I mean, we're all there to enjoy the beauty of this area. And I think to the previous speaker's point, this whole center business is a little over the top. It's really not. It's just a place where he's a musician, she's an artist. That's art. That's where art people gather. That's where people who enjoy the area gather. You know, we're their neighbors. I couldn't ask for better neighbors. I wholeheartedly support what they're doing. And I didn't need to see the AI to know that what they're doing is really special. I hope with all I've got that you guys will approve this, because I'd much rather have them doing what they're doing than have some, money hungry developer come in and then that's our new neighbors, because that would just suck. So technical term. Anyway, thanks for letting me speak, and thanks for letting all of us speak.
Thank you.
David Smith.
David Smith, 4689 East Rock Rose Drive, Cave Creek, Arizona. You shouldn't put that light on so soon. I'd like to deal with, what I always thought when I was on the council, that the purpose of being on the council is to do what is best for the town of Cave Creek. And this is a unique opportunity to do what really is best for the town of Cave Creek. Because you will, if this is approved, it will eliminate an existing encroachment into the Spur Cross Ranch conservation area. It will cause a minimal impact on the setback. But setbacks are really for two purposes, from my point of view. One is for the animals to be able to move back and forth between structures. The other is to make sure that people living beside each other don't have a good reason to fight with each other because their properties abut each other too closely. In this case, you've got a situation where on three sides, the Greenburns own the property. They're probably not going to complain. On the other side, you've got the conservation ranch where there is an existing encroachment which will be resolved. And the Cardin from the county parks said, this is a good thing. And he thinks it's a positive action. And the fact that the encroachment, the very small one, 11 square feet, would be on potentially on the side of the park, that's not an issue. Also, let me say something technical. And I'm not going to ask a question because you're not supposed to do that when you're standing here. At the beginning of the zoning ordinances, there's a statement that says any action taken relative to these requirements does not establish a precedent. Also, it is the right and sometimes the responsibility of council members, when it is in the best interest of the town, to waive and or vary what is in the ordinances. That's always been there. It's always been something that has been acceptable, and it should continue to be acceptable. Now, I could go on for another 2 minutes as David Phelps did, but I'm done. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Paul Diefenderfer.
Paul Diefenderfer, 7645 East Highland Road. Thought I'd pop in here tonight to talk about the Soviet Union. Soviet Union was really into plans. They planned everything, and they'd set a goal and then they'd write out these excruciatingly detailed plans. For instance, food, good goal, provide food to the people. The plan would talk about what to plant, when to plant it, where to plant it, and when to harvest it. And that worked okay most of the time. Occasionally, though, plan says harvest the crops, and the crops weren't ready. They harvested them because that's what the plan said, and you didn't violate the plan. There was no mechanism for violating the plan. So you can imagine that that didn't do so well for providing for the goal of food for the people. Cave Creek's got the general plan, and it talks about open space and preserving what is Cave Creek. And then we've got all the ordinance and things down there that go into sometimes excruciatingly detail on what's to implement that plan. I know there's people in this town that think we should follow the plan down to the exact letter, even if it means violating the goals of the general plan. As I see it, you've got 2 options tonight. You can stick to the plan and follow it to the letter and take us over the cliff like the Soviet Union, or you can do what's right for Cave Creek and pass this. And just in case you're wondering, option 2 is the correct one.
Charlie Spitzer is on the line.
Charlie, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for letting me appear this way. I'm sort of a little bit under the weather now. You may recall that earlier this year, a developer for the area behind town council or the town hall came in and got a large number of variances to ordinances that dealt with health, safety, and welfare waived. And the town council passed that. Fast forward to today in this item. This lot is about 1.5 million square feet. The area under discussion is not a new area because they're mitigating the majority, the 95% of the problems that exist currently. And they're actually moving some of the area from that part of that area that they're removing and making it be part of the house. So out of that 1.5 million square feet, we're really talking about a piece of area that's smaller than the table in front of you. Yes, it is an incursion into the wildlife corridor. However, there's 20,000 acres on the other side of that line, which is a wildlife area, and it really doesn't impact anything. I would hope that we would take into account the mitigations that's being done, the vast removal of the problems and the incursion into Spur Cross, and pass this. Thank you.
I have no additional speakers.
Okay, we have a written comment here from Ernie Weber, who is in support, and his comment is: having the Greenbergs purchase this property was a Hail Mary for the town of Cave Creek. I cannot imagine a better outcome for this property. The progress already made is amazing. This property was very run down and an eyesore. It will be better than it ever was and provide a keystone between Spur Cross and the town. It fits and we should support it. If there are no other comments, then the hearing is closed. At this point, I'd like to call on the town attorney to give his assessment.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, as you know, the league has me teach local government to every newly elected official. And I learned so much from attending council meetings, and I continue to learn much from your community. although the Soviet Union came out of left field.
Literally.
And humor, we have good humor. But this has been a civics process. As you've shown your community how you intend to discharge your duties. I admire Mr. Phelps's passion. He raised 4 issues. I'm going to address them. He first suggested this is not a legislative act. I disagree strongly. What you are doing is administratively required in your code, and it's set forth on page 30 of your documents tonight. And you're being asked to make sure that this proposal meets 5 different criteria. Your Development Services Director has told you that they do. Your Planning Commission has voted unanimously 6-0 that they do. And that is for you to decide tonight. And by doing that, then you would authorize this non-conforming use permit. Now, I will disagree with Mr. Greenberg. This isn't irrelevant. The steps you will take will address comments he made on page 54 of the packet when he spoke to the commission. When he said, if the commission recommend, and if you decide, it avoids any unnecessary legal follow-up, and we're just asking you to approve this and move forward. So this has meaning. And so I would suggest that you're doing your job. I would suggest that you're listening to your constituents and you have to respond. I would suggest that if a majority of you approve the non-conforming use modification permit, he will proceed. But you have to go through those 5 criteria and then decide. But the reason, you and your colleague are taking this quite seriously. Councilmember McGuire left the room. He did that because I told him that his Facebook posting caused him and his objectivity to be questioned. And he didn't, and he was a strong supporter of Mr. Greenberg. And he completely agreed. I also told him that as a member of this community, he has a right to sit here and listen, but he was so worried, and you heard the emotion in his voice, that he wanted to leave the room. But that shows you what these elected officials are trying to do. They're trying to apply the law. And so I would suggest they are not acting legislatively, they're acting administratively, and they have to make sure that the 5 factors are satisfied. And if a majority approve it, then Mr. Greenberg goes forward. Now, there's been discussion about adverse precedent. That's the consequence of this being a non-conforming use. The law despises non-conforming uses. Why? Because that causes zoning to be not uniform. So what they say is, but they also recognize in America that when you buy property, you have the right to use it. And so they say you may use it. And so Mr. Greenberg correctly cited, it's on page, also on page 30. If indeed he mitigates the conformity, then it can be approved at the administrative level, and that's occurred. Now, does that set an adverse precedent? No. What it's saying is that if you are one of the few properties that are grandmothered in, and I really respect you for that comment. No one uses it, that you're allowed to use it. And he's allowed to make changes, and it only results in that 11 feet. And so, but that's the only, it results in much less, but that's the only adverse precedent, and it's mitigated by the rest. It's simply a math issue. And so your zoning administrator made that decision. But as Mr. Greenberg pointed out, you can resolve this tonight by voting in the affirmative. We've talked about the decks. We agree. And Councilmember Rhodes suggested that we have a better definition of permeability. Having said that, this will only occur if there's a structure that you're attaching the permeable deck to. You're just not going to go out in the middle of a native habitat corridor and build an awning for Jack in the Box to sell hamburgers. And so I don't think it's an adverse precedent. And I also saw the pictures of the stairs. What you're looking at tonight is math. You're not looking at use. By looking at math and his mitigating the use by reducing, only resulting in 11 feet of additional rights, he pulls himself into the exception that could be allowed by the administrator, and you can approve tonight. Oh, but it's only square footage. It has nothing to do with which is built on the property. I see these pictures of the stairs. One thing I've learned up here in Cave Creek, you are very, very, very protective of what you do in residential properties. Your design review doesn't apply to resident. It doesn't even apply. It only applies to commercial. And so this actually is inaccurate. And so he has the right, assuming he mitigated, to go ahead and build. Now, there were some questions raised. This actually completely eliminates encroachments into Spur Cross. And there were discussions made about use. This has nothing to do with rezoning. That would be a legislative act. And this, they have to maintain the rural nature of it. I'm sorry, the residential nature of it. So there is no rezoning. So bottom line is, this isn't legislative, it's administrative. Bottom line is, they take their responsibility quite strictly. Mr. McGuire left, didn't want to stay in the room. They are acting tonight, and if a majority of them approve, it does have impact, but they can only approve if the 5 factors on pages, I think it's 32, many pages 30 here. Yeah, pages 30 and 31. And you have the administrator the zoning administrator telling you it's permitted. You have the entire commission telling you it's permitted. And I hope I've answered Mr. Phelps's questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sims. If I failed to close the public hearing, I do so now. So the public hearing is closed and we're prepared for a motion.
I'll do it.
Councilmember.
Motion to approve town case NCU 23-01 Greenberg non-conforming use, a request for modification to the footprint of a single family dwelling within the minimum required side yard setback.
We had a second from council member. You had the first comments.
Yeah, I don't normally make a lot of comments, but I made some notes here while we've been looking at this, and there's a couple of things that I find kind of interesting. The first one is that the original encroachment happened in 1970 when nobody knew where the property line was because they assumed that a fence was it, which was a bad decision on that part. That was 53 years ago or so. In the meantime, we've incorporated that and done our zoning overlays, and the purpose of zoning, in my mind, and former Vice Mayor Smith mentioned this, is to keep from annoying your neighbors. I doubt the coyotes, the javelin, and the bobcats and everything else are really going to care that 12-foot setback is an issue because they've got 2,200 acres, which is something that Mr. Spitzer mentioned, and I've got my notes here, but the deck itself is part of the mitigation of getting that property or those structures back on their own property. The impact is absolutely minimal. It doesn't set a precedent because it's part of the mitigation process. And if the Sonoran Arts League truly started there under a different name, there's been gatherings on that property for an awful long time. We're not changing anything. We're just carrying on with tradition. Therefore, I'm going to support this wholeheartedly.
Councilmember Ogden, you had the second.
I just wanted to see if someone's going to make a motion to, oh, sorry, I always forget that as loud as I am. I was going to see if somebody was going to make the amendment that I think the staff agreed to regarding a definition on permeable going forward.
I think there's two things. I think we need to take a look at permeability. Also, I think Mr. Phelps, as I read through his package here, has an issue with decks. I don't think it's pertinent to this case, but I do think it's something that needs to be addressed in the zoning. And where's our building services director? I would ask that the building services director come back to us within 90 days to address that. But I fully support what the applicant is doing. I think that is a good thing.
Yeah, I think that we have a motion on the table. And so this motion, we can do that outside of this motion here.
Right. And I'm not trying to.
Right.
Yeah.
We're just trying to figure out how to do
I
that.
think
But I
there's
think
a-
it's two things. It's the permeability and it's also the deck issue that Mr. Phelps
I
brought up.
think there's a consensus to
Yeah.
address that issue.
And then, Mr. Mayor, if I could, just the only thing else, if we're going to ask staff to come back in 90 days on that, I would love to lobby you and your colleagues to, let's just get the native plant protection ordinance with the 25% set aside and the 12-foot setback up sometime before the end of the calendar year, just to see if staff has some suggestions for things that can be done to reacquaint the new community with the ordinance, and maybe staff has some suggestions for modifying or amending or improving it. I just think it's 30 years old and a lot of new people don't know anything about it. And I know, I agree with Luke in terms of more education, but could we bring it back and just, not necessarily for action on the agenda, but for discussion? And there may be some ideas from the staff or other people to revitalize it. That's what I just want to lobby you on at this moment. Thank you.
It's an important issue. Any other comments on this particular motion? I'm seeing none. I will put my 2 comments in. First of all, there is a universal alignment in preserving, expanding Spur Cross and the riparian, especially the riparian area. They just, I mean, where else can you find that in Maricopa County? This is a battle that's kind of out on the fringe, I think, because I think there is universal agreement everywhere that we need to continue with Spur Cross, and we got another 30 acres along with the land trust last year, year before.
No, that's true.
Last year. So the town has always got its antenna out, as does the land trust, as does Maricopa County, to further expand and protect Spur Cross. The second thing is much of the very best property up there is private. And we have no means of preserving that except through cooperation. It is a vital interest to continuing the progress in Spur Cross that we have the cooperation and that we have the support of the property owners up there. So I believe that is maybe a more important issue than what one word means here or one word means over here, is that community consensus to keep something that is irreplaceable. So I'm going to support this. With that, I'm going to ask for roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Egerton,
Aye.
Councilmember Bunch,
Yes.
Councilmember Elkama,
Yes, and a comment, just, first of all, I ran for this chair on preservation, and I think you're doing it, and I acknowledge that and appreciate it. I also would just like to share that we're looking beyond the local landmarks buildings to places, and that this Spur Cross Park is been suggested for next year's nomination. So just so you know, that's there.
Councilmember Rhodes,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Roy.
Yes,
Mayor
and I have
Morris.
a comment too.
Oh, sorry.
Just quickly, that I was involved in the very first meeting that Melissa Paxton from Texas coordinated to try to preserve Harmony Hollow. We were at the library. I helped her create the agenda. We had a nice sized audience, and we talked about the feasibility of how we were going to protect this property. And over the next year, probably more than that, we went back and forth on how to do that. And did we have the energy? And I noticed that David Phelps wore his Preserve Spur Cross shirt tonight. Did we have the capability, the capacity to raise funds like we did 25 years ago, almost? No, because we're 25 years older. And so is our community getting older. And so to have art fests and fundraisers and car washes and bakeries, baked goods, we did not have the ability to do that. And the Greenbergs came along, and they were like angels that came from the sky to preserve this property. And so all I have to say is thank you. And from all of us, we are grateful and we appreciate your patience with us. And I vote wholeheartedly in favor of this.
Mayor Morris.
Longest vote we ever had in county council.
I know. How'd you do that?
Mayor Morris.
Aye. So the motion passes 6-0.
Yay.
Does council need a break? Are we ready to continue?
Never good. Yeah.
Well, let's leave him out.
You know, your mic's on.
Let's cause a 10-minute break here, please.
Okay.
The next item on the agenda is council discussion approval of resolution R 2023-24. A resolution of the mayor and town council of the town of Cave Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, authorizing the town manager to sign a lease agreement between the town of Cave Creek and Cave Creek Rodeo Days Incorporated, CCRD, and Arizona Nonprofit Corporation. This is presented by the Development Services Director.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. In 1936, Joseph Stalin founded the People's Rodeo Cowboy. Oh, that's the wrong presentation. I'm sorry. 45 years ago, a PRCA sanctioned rodeo started occurring in the town of Cave Creek. It's had different names and been known by different things over the time. Most recently, it's in the iteration of the Cave Creek Rodeo. About 4 years ago, the town approved a resolution entering into a lease agreement for the Cave Creek Rodeo Days to utilize the rodeo grounds out on the west side of town. That agreement is coming to pass here in the next year as a 5-year lease agreement. What is before you this evening is a new lease agreement, which uses the bones of the previously drafted lease agreement, which is in your packet as Exhibit A. And just what the things that we've learned and the considerations and deliverables from the town, the expectations back from the rodeo have been finer tuned. Obviously, the boards change, committees change. Cave Creek Rodeo is represented here tonight by the Mikes, Mike Frederickson and Mike Poppenweimer. And they've reviewed this, been hand in hand in the discussions for reviewing what's before you tonight in Exhibit B of your packet. The action item request goes through the financial implications, discusses the town expenditures. And one thing of note in this is the parade expenditures portion. The town has set a cap of not to exceed 10,500. Things get more expensive as time elapses. We wanted to put a hard cap on what that cost to the town is going to be. And then below that, I'm looking at page 64, you'll see the Cave Creek Rodeo Days deliverables there as well. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions from the mayor council at this time. Thank you.
Questions from council?
Mr. Councilman, have you ever been to the Cave Creek Rodeo?
A few times, yes, Mayor, or former Mayor Bunch. So it's a great event. It's really a signature event of the town.
Have you ever picked up trash on a Sunday afternoon at the Cave Creek Rodeo?
I have.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Mayor.
Other question? Councilmember McGuire.
Luke, how much time have you spent on this?
I wouldn't even begin to know offhand. I know there was probably a period there, and if my wife were here, she would scream it. She would have it down to the minute. But it was akin to having 2 full-time jobs there for a better part of 18 months.
Perhaps, Luke, it's in our materials, but is this an annual lease?
No, the lease has a term of 5 years, and then there are terms for renewal and extension within that lease.
Because I was going to say it should be more than 1 year.
Correct. And really how this was born out in 2019 with a newer committee taking over kind of an old regime and trying to do this the right way and the transparent way is the rodeo board at that point, because so many contracts are negotiated 3 and 5 year terms out. What the rodeo committee really wanted was a certainty that they would have those grounds in 5-year increments, because they're booking contracts, they're booking their stock contractor, everything down to entertainment out that far. So it was really a safety and security for both parties.
Very good. Thank you.
I guess I have a serious question. You can believe it. Do you find the working with the rodeo boards that there's a lot less animosity than there was prior to the latest Cave Creek Rodeo Days name change?
I personally, anecdotally, absolutely.
Thank you.
So I do have a question. The $10,500, is that going to be enough 2 or 3 years from now?
That is, once again, the reason we cap that is because changes in costs for law enforcement to get off-duty police officers and everything else. We wanted to put in the contract that the town's exposure cap would be 10,500. Anything above that expense would be the sole responsibility of Cave Creek Rodeo Days.
All right. Thank you.
Last questions. Okay, thank you. Your public comment?
David Phelps.
David Smith around. I want 9 minutes. David Phelps here. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you on this issue. Something that's come to my attention, and I wish it would come to yours as well. Bless you. I'd like the money generated by this event, that we are funding a lot of the CapEx expenses for this to occur. We are funding it so that the money is generated in our town. And I would like to find a way to make a district approach to where the money should go that they want to distribute, that you guys don't have to approve every gift they give, but the gifts they give should stay in our district, whatever that definition is. I know we got kids from, I think, a middle school that are equestrian leaning kids that come participate with the rodeo. I know that I've read the rodeo standards for grants, and that, you know, they're looking for people to participate with the rodeo in order to receive the funding. So that's one of the challenges they have. But they've also done some great things for Kiwanis Museum. And I'm sure that list goes on. And I want to see it go on here. And I realize we're kind of struggling with, does that mean that somebody in Desert Hills couldn't get it? And I think they could, but I don't really want to see the money go to Chandler, Gilbert, Glendale, just because they filled out an application and fit the criteria to win an award. I think the money should stay here. It's generated here. Plus, we're spending the money to make the money be created. Thank you very much for your attention.
No additional speakers.
Does one of the mics want to stand up and say anything here before we?
He said,
Here, please come to the podium, Mike.
My name is Mike Oppenheimer, president of the Cave Creek Rodeo Board of Directors. And actually, we're excited. We're glad that you addressed Luke's experience with the rodeo, because he's an asset to work with. And that's what, you know, and I appreciate what was said, and that according to our articles of incorporation, when we became a 501c3, that the monies go to scholarship, charities in the area, and improvements of the rodeo ground. Very specific. And that's what our goal is. Yes, we've changed some direction as far as economic impact that we want to improve over the week of rodeo days. So we want to make it bigger and better, that it's losing my voice already, more significant. So with that, I really appreciate you supporting the lease. We have a good board, and we're doing a lot of great things, I think. So Ernie, Councilman Bunch is on that board. So with that, this is Mike Ferguson. He's an officer of our board of directors also.
Thank you, Mike. I just want to say that, you know, it's been an honor and a privilege to be part of Cave Creek Rodeo, and Luke and Mr. Bunch and all of those that have been part of the rodeo in the past. It's been very exciting to me, and with this board that Mike spoke about, to take this thing further. And we're very anxious. This lease gives us the option the opportunity to move forward and make it a better event. So thank you very much.
Do you have any other questions of the rodeo staff?
I do. How much time do you guys spend on the rodeo? Same answer as Luke.
Pretty much, but at our age, when you're retired, it's not fun. We don't have to do it. We enjoy it. It's fun to watch.
You know, Mike was, Luke was speaking of contracts for livestock and all of that, and I'll tell you what, being in charge of production, that is a challenge to keep the lease going, the livestock contracts, and entertainment contracts and all of that in place and trying to keep this thing. Well, so when the mayor comes out to the rodeo, he goes, wow, that was a really good performance. So that's what we're aiming for. That's what we're aiming for.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
We've gotten through the questions, public comment, so we're ready for a motion.
I can do that. Motion to approve resolution number R 2023-24, a resolution of the mayor and town council of the town of Cave Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, authorizing the town manager to sign a lease agreement between the town of Cave Creek and Cave Creek Rodeo Days, CCRD, and Arizona Nonprofit Corporation.
Second.
You know, since we almost lost the thing years ago, the contributions to the community and to the town of Cave Creek from Cave Creek Rodeo Days have been substantial. I believe we've given out to other charities and other needy groups in excess of probably $70,000 or maybe $80,000. We also put in about $180,000 in shoots and panels out there for the stock. So the Cave Creek Rodeo Days is an integral part of the community of Cave Creek, the town of Cave Creek, right, Mike?
So when you come to Cave Creek, we're all about that equestrian
Mike.
thing. We're all about a good celebration out there, and it's just great to walk on and know it's going to be done right. Thank you very much.
Other comments? I have a comment about this. I've heard some of the plans that are going, and they're truly amazing. There's all sorts of things going on with the rodeo expansions, and I'm very aware that Ernie and Luke and others saved the rodeo back in 2018 or thereabouts. I just can't imagine the town without it. And now that the restrooms are going up, I hope to hear very soon that we have concluded and we actually own the ground underneath it and enough land to park the cars that support the seats that we have out there. So I'm 100% in favor of this. This contract looks pretty much like the last one. So I'm going to vote for it. With that, we'll call the motion, and it is financial, so we'll have a roll call.
Councilmember Elkama,
Yes.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember Rhodes,
Aye.
Councilmember Algerton,
Aye.
Councilmember Bunch,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Royer,
Yes.
Mayor Morris.
Aye. Motion passes 7-0, excuse me. The last item on the agenda is council discussion approval of resolution R 2023-22, a resolution of the mayor and town council of the town of Cave Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, authorizing the mayor to execute an intergovernmental agreement between and among the town of Cave Creek, the Maricopa County Association of Governments, and the Arizona Department of Transportation in connection with the funding of a study for the construction of lanes along Cave Creek Road between Loop 101 and the Carefree Highway, presented by the town engineer.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm in an unfamiliar territory here in that I want to give away some money that we've got. We received a call from ADOT saying, congratulations, you were awarded $250,000 to study the widening of Cave Creek Road. I thought, okay, so I looked into it, and Senate Bill 1722 awarded Cave Creek the money. Problem is, we own 6/10 of that, and there's 9.8 miles of it. that means Phoenix, Maricopa County, things like that. Thought tail wagging dog. That's not really what we want to do. So we had a meeting between MAG and Phoenix, and we agreed that MAG was the best purveyor of that grant money rather than the town to manage a study such as that. So we've worked out through the agreement with MAG, with and ADOT and ourselves, and that's what we were presenting to you tonight.
Questions?
It makes me crazy to give away $250,000. So do we get to influence even with our 6/10? I mean, where are we in this?
Where we are is we have a seat at the table for when the study comes in, we can input comment into the study as it affects us. So I have told them when they're writing the scope that we want to be, one of the people that has a say within the study itself. But as far as giving the money away, I don't think we are in the position to manage a study for our neighbors to the south.
Will we hear about how will you bring to us that study or those proposals so we can at least have a look?
Yes, as the drafts start getting prepared, we will certainly bring them to the mayor and council for review.
Is this the full amount for the entire study?
Yes. For the study, not construction, but for the
I
study.
understand, but
Yes.
I mean, why would they give it to us? Why wouldn't Phoenix, which has the lion's share of this?
Cave Creek.
That's the question that we asked too. Councilman Rhodes, we asked, why are you giving it to Cave Creek when we own 0.6 of a mile of that stretch?
It does,
And what was the
it
answer?
does. It does feel a little bit like a double barrel 10 gauge aimed at us.
It would have been if we had to manage the study. That's why through through our attorney Sims, he was able to help us get some indemnity wording and through MAG so that we are not responsible should the study get screwed up.
Let me point that out. This was an example. You have a good engineer sitting at the table. Never does ADOT budge. Here, MAG, they wrote it where you would be indemnifying ADOT for MAG's negligence. And so I called the MAG attorney and they changed it. And so I've never seen ADOT do that. And so Hal did a good job on this one.
Mayor, I did speak with the staff at MAG and they said this was purely a legislative issue. The legislators were not in favor of giving funds to large cities. They didn't want to fund Phoenix and other cities. So they were trying to give the funds out to the smaller communities, but they didn't check to see where our boundaries were.
Well, I hope we leverage that position and make sure that with that 0.6 of a mile, and especially the intersection, we get whatever we want.
We are talking to them about grants for things we need.
Yeah.
So we are having good conversations with MAG for things that are near and dear to our hearts and not 9 miles away in Phoenix.
But we don't want to give away this leverage we have we want to make sure that our 0.6 is a 0.6 that we want it to be.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think my concern would be the proximity of our utilities. Since they're talking about lanes, they got to be adding lanes to the thing. The proximity of our utilities is of a major concern, including the Southwest gas lines right on the northeast corner there, which are, I mean, there's this is funny.
Yes, we had a conversation this last week. I had a conversation with the project manager from MAG. And I pointed out the major transport system of the Southwest gas that sits the southwest corner or southeast corner of Cave Creek and Carefree Highway. I also pointed out our facilities all up and down Cave Creek Road for our CAP pipeline, which if they widen it, could end up in under pavement. So those are things that have to be studied that affect us directly and have to be looked at. Are they going to pay for the relocation of those pump stations?
There we have, now we're thinking.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now we're
Yes.
thinking.
Right.
So is that going to be part of the eventual expansion of the project? So we have, that was the initial salvo that I had last week with them.
And every time I see a backhoe on Cave Creek Road, I think of when they broke the cap line here, 10 years ago? And
Yes,
we don't want to be out of water.
no.
Yeah.
We don't. And so that is one of our concerns. Again, it's a study. We want to see it at the table. We don't want to be the ones driving it.
So I guess I got another question. Financially, will we then be paying the consultant that's doing the work? Since we've got the money,
No,
We have to get.
do we have to give the money to somebody else?
we are giving the money to MAG.
Okay, was that, how does that fit in with the budget?
It was never budgeted. We
Right,
didn't know we had it.
that's my question, yeah.
We did not know we had the money when we did the budgeting procedure. It was not in one of the grants that we had figured that we would get. It came out of really left field. Where's Stephen? But it really came out of left field. We were not aware that the money was coming or why it was coming. And so the issue is that's why the three-way agreement, that it will pass from ADOT to MAG through, with us basically saying, here it is, but we want to see it at the table.
But we will show up on our books.
No,
in-
never
in
show
and
up on
out.
our
It
books.
won't, okay, so it doesn't affect the budget. Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
No, it was never budgeted. It's not going to be expended by us. It's not even a pass through. It's a pass around.
Okay.
This isn't a sneaky way to get your truck, is it?
No, it's not. But now that you meant, no, that will come later.
Okay, so there is public comment on this.
I have no one wishing to speak.
Okay, so we're looking for the motion. I will make it. Motion to approve resolution R 2023-22, a resolution of the mayor and town council, town of Cave Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, authorizing the mayor to execute an intergovernmental agreement between and among the town of Cave Creek, the Maricopa Association of Governments, and the Arizona Department of Transportation in connection with the funding of a study for the construction of lanes along Cave Creek Road between Loop 101 and the Carefree Highway.
Second.
My comment on this, if they're gonna widen the road, there's people coming on that road too. All that land along there, our little town is being approached by the enemy, so to speak. So. Who had the second?
I did. Carefree Highway is only about 20 miles long. Cave Creek Road is what? 25 or 30 miles long? My point.
Oh, okay, well, I'm glad to know that. Other comments? This is financial, so let's have a roll call vote, please. Teresa?
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember Rhodes,
Aye.
Councilmember Algerton,
Aye.
Councilmember Bunch,
Yes.
Councilmember Elkma,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Royer,
Yes.
Mayor Morris.
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Meeting adjourned.
Yes.